what do you think is the most hardest thing becoming a flight lead and growing as a flight lead?
I think the hardest thing is, and I think I said it in one of my videos as well. The hardest thing is to imagine what the people in your flight are seeing and doing. You need to be able to like step into their cockpit and imagine why are they responding in a certain way, and how can I guide them based on that assumption. And of course, it's all in communication. They need to tell you what they do, but as an experienced flight lead, you need to be able to identify with what they see, do, and how they should react or how they could react. You basically need to be ahead, not only ahead of your own jet, but you need to be ahead of their jet and their responses. So I think that is the hardest thing, is to have the mental capacity where flying your jet is becoming automatic, and you fly the flight instead of your, only your own jet.
You are listening to the Simulated Airspace, where we talk about flight sims and everything about aviation, but the main focus is air combat simulation. Our guest has been creating some excellent videos about the fundamentals of flight leading in BMS, a topic that is not often covered in content on YouTube or other platforms. And today we'll get to know him and how he got started with approaching this topic. We will also get to hear a bit about the group he's a part of, the 31st Virtual Fighter Squadron. So let's get a real quick introduction. Go ahead, Prime.
So I'm Prime, Aviation Plus, here as always with Fisgas on the Simulated Airspace, and I create YouTube videos of BMS for all types of people who play, tutorials, missions, and all kind of things. So make sure you check out my channel. And then Fisgas, give your little short introduction.
Sure. So I am Fisgas. I have my little YouTube channel called Fisgas Fighties with some tutorials and some other content on there. And without further ado, and obviously last but certainly not least, I would like to introduce our guest here, Wildman. So go ahead, Wildman. Thanks for joining in, and give us a quick introduction of yours.
Yeah, like Fiskus said, I'm Wildman of Wildman 31st channel. I've recently started a series about flight lead fundamentals, and I'm extremely happy that I was invited to the podcast. I was kind of surprised, and but happily surprised. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you with these flight leader videos. It's something that I created a little while, like maybe years ago, with our squadron. We would do some FLUG, which is an acronym for Flight Lead Upgrade, and we would
Hmm.
put them in situations where controlled situations where they would lead a flight. We would first start with 2 people, so you would have one wingman instead of going straight to 4, which is another challenge of its own. So yeah, there's definitely a different mindset, a different characteristic, and some things you just can't learn on paper or video when it comes to flight leading. It's mostly just experience and what you think should happen based on those experiences. And you are the person that all your wingman is looking up to. So it's definitely a different mindset, a different philosophy of being a flight lead in Falcon BMS and in real life in that sense as well.
Yep, absolutely agree.
So with you being our guest, so let's go ahead and just do a short little background of yourself. We'll get to the flight leader videos later on, but the listeners would probably want to get to know you a little bit. So go like, who are you? Like, what do you like to do? And what got you started with flight sims? And how did the idea come up for you to create videos about the topic of flight sim or of flight leader upgrade, of flight lead training?
Sure. Well, I'm Wildman, which is of course my call sign. It's a play on my last name, and I'm 55. I live in the Netherlands, and I got into flying BMS end of 2019. and I joined 31st Virtual Fighter Squadron early 2020, and I've been flying with them ever since. And I think the basis of how I got to flying in BMS is in my youth. I'm an Air Force brat. My dad worked in the Air Force. He wasn't a pilot, but of course, I was extremely interested in everything that had to do with aviation, especially fighter aviation. I spent quite some time on the Air Force Base where he worked. There, they first flew F-104s, and then transitioned to the F-16. And well, I basically grew up with everything Air Force. So that's where the seed was laid, and where it kind of grew. So and I've been flying combat sims for quite a little while. Started in the well, actually, it first started in a real steel F-16 simulator when I was 16, in the middle of the 80s. And my dad snuck me in the simulator, so I got to fly the real steel F-16 simulator only once. And from there on, PCs started coming up, and the first thing that I installed was, of course, Falcon, which I flew with the keyboard, and it was all black and white and everything, but it was cool. And how I got started.
So with you getting started, so what was the when you were playing Falcon 4 and using the keyboard and stuff, what was your route to like learn? Was it just 'cause I know the internet wasn't quite around, YouTube wasn't around so much, but what was your route to learn uh
No,
back
man,
in those days?
it was really early. So it was all on black and white. It wasn't Falcon 4. It was Falcon just 1. So it was extremely basic. It was really just very gamey. From there on, I moved to simulators progressed. I moved to things like F-19 Stealth Fighter, F-15 Strike Eagle 2. Then I bought Falcon 3, and I also bought the first version of the Thrustmaster F-16 throttle and joystick. Um, and then basically, let me see, I flew Tornado, the Tornado simulator, and I think the last thing that I flew was F-22 Lightning 3, I believe, and then life got in the way. So and it was end of the 90s, and then I basically stopped flying simulators. And before that, it wasn't like you said, YouTube wasn't a thing. So it was reading the books and just trial and error, and but it was all very gamey. Wasn't anything online. I played Falcon 3 with a friend once with a modem cable between two PCs, and that was just basically everything multiplayer there was back those days.
Oh, yeah, the
The
LAN local
curiosity.
area network thing, yep.
Yeah, those things with the 32K, what's it called?
Cool.
The KB, yeah, kilobyte modems. Did you ever play Wildman any of the Jane's simulators, like the IAF, the USAF, or the F-15 one? Those ones. Just
Nope,
curious.
never did. I think they were after they were mainly released after things like Tornado, because I think Tornado was mid 90s, end of the 90s. I think the Jane's things they became more popular as far as I can recall in the early 2000s, and that's when I wasn't flying any sims at all. I actually picked it back up in 2019.
So with 2019, oh wow. Um, so what got you into Falcon BMS? So I know we had all the different versions of Falcon BMS 4.32 and up. When did you start getting into Falcon BMS? What version was it ish?
In 2019, I was looking for a new challenge, and of course, my love for aircraft never waned. So it was always in the background, even though, like I said, life got in the way. And I basically Googled what kind of simulators there were and whether Falcon was still a thing because, like I said, I bought Falcon 3 in the middle of the 90s, and I remembered that as back then a very cool simulator. It also was possible to play that online, which of course was something that I hadn't ever done. So it was like, okay, so if I can play it online, I there's probably going to be groups who do this. Is there a Dutch group? And that's how I stumbled upon 31st Virtual Fighter Squadron. And I think back then, indeed, they were on 432, I believe. So it was, compared to what it's now, it was really basic, but I loved it.
Yeah, it was pretty basic, 4.32. So did you jump right into online, or were you in single player, or did you kind of get trained by people in the multiplayer setting, or how did that kind of go? Your first couple years in BMS?
I first played single player, of course, getting to know the ropes in the sim itself. I had to buy myself some hardware because I didn't have a HOTAS, etc. So I bought my first HOTAS, and then of course I had to have head tracking, so I bought a track IR system. And then I got in touch with 31st Virtual Fighter Squadron. They were then dedicated to BMS, and they had like an acceptance exam. They called it the IQT, the initial qualification training. And they had a couple of things that you needed to master in order to pass the IQT. And after the IQT, you could become a full-time member. So I knew what I had to know and what I had to prove, and I trained on that, and then asked for an IQT date, which I passed. So then it was up to what we then had the first flight where the whole squadron would show up, and then they would fly a mission. The new guy would stay on the wing of the squadron leader, and they would fly a mission. And after that, they would, of course, all be asked, "Do you want Wildman to join the squadron?" And then, if everybody said yes, you were a member. And I managed to make a complete fool of myself during my first flight.
Uh-oh. Uh,
Do tell,
do
do
tell,
tell.
you're committed now.
Yeah, I am. I know. I of course I ran out of gas during the first flight because I was constantly lagging behind and had to use my afterburner to stay with my flight lead, etc. So when I was really low on gas, my flight lead said, "Okay, just punch off your tanks." And when I tried to, I ejected.
Oh, when you tried to
Wait,
jettison your
hang on. You
tanks, you
need to run that
ejected.
one.
I
Yeah, you need
I
to run that one by me again.
I tried to do an emergency jettison and I pushed the wrong button on the keyboard and I ejected.
Oh,
Oof.
huh. So any call sign? I know you're wild man now, but was there a call sign attempted to be made years ago?
I I really wish I honestly really wish that was how call signs were handled in the 31st, but everybody gets to choose their own call sign. So I wasn't handed a new one, but this would have been a cool one, I guess.
Yeah, we have was it like I think we call them like strings or something. It's something because you're or ropes. You eject. You have those ropes and stuff. And so yeah, we had
Mhm.
someone do that, and we call them ropes or something.
Yeah, if that was the way that 31st had used call signs, basically the way it's done in real life, we would have had some really cool call signs within our squadron. But basically, we all let people choose their own ones, and they never changed.
Yeah, it just depends on. We had someone who was new to the sixth, and he joined. He was flying with us for about a couple months, and then we were flying in Korea, and we were landing on Kunsan, I think it was, and there's a highway really close to that area, and it's super long, and it's roughly the same heading of the runway. So we're all landing, and for some reason he gets separated, and he starts landing on the road on the highway. At the time he had his own call sign, but after that he almost landed on the road. He did a touch and go on the road. We were like, "What are you doing? You're about to land on the road." So after that we call him Roadie. It's been like 6 years around. So we call him Roadie now.
That is so cool. Yeah, we had a guy who wanted to join the squadron. He failed his first IQT. His first name was Thomas, and he failed the IQT because he always came in too shallow. So I suggested that his call sign should have been the acronym of Thomas is too shallow, but it wasn't approved.
Hey, acronyms are the best because it's like, oh wow, that sounds pretty innocent, and then it's like the acronym spells out something completely crazy. Like, oh, would have never thought that.
Yeah.
My last DCS group, just interjecting on here, called me the call sign I got like I basically my handle was Fisgas, and then like I had a call sign. The entire group got a call sign assigned to them over some stuff they did. And the previous group I've been with, I've been flying a lot of F-18s, so I had developed the muscle memory of doing the overhead brake at 800 feet over the runway or over the carrier when I was trying to land the carrier on the carrier, but I always sucked at it anyway. And then I was going through their little exam there, and they saw me doing that, and I got the call of squid because I was landing like one of the Navy dudes.
Was it the squid?
Okay.
Squid, yes, that's what they
Oh,
call me,
okay.
squid.
Yeah. Landing like Navy dudes.
Perfect.
So did you have? I mean, later on, once you pass IQT, and did you do like large? I don't know how many people are there specifically, but did you do larger missions with like separate flights doing separate tasks to complete a common goal? Like, how did the multiplayer thing kind of pan out as you started flying with it?
Yeah, absolutely. When everybody was still flying BMS, we often had flight nights where 25, 26 people showed up, only from our squadron, and we were able to just do very large missions, which was actually kind of cool. I was from the get-go. I was one of the people who also enjoyed mission building, so I could basically make the missions as large as I wanted, and that was a very fun time for me, especially because my heart is with BMS. So I was actually kind of sad to see a lot of guys. I think now 4 years ago or something, transition over to DCS, and right now the majority within 31st VFS is flying DCS, and at the BMS side, I think there's only 6 or 7 guys left now.
Well, that's unfortunate. There's some new updates that might bring them back, but depending on how much money they spent in the DCS, will determine if they switch over or not. Because that could be one of the factors. And if you want to fly another airplane, so if they get the F-15E or the F-4 or the 18, then yeah, they're over there until BMS comes up with a new aircraft that the blue members can fly, the NATO can fly.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it would be cool if there would be more guys flying both. I now recently have started flying missions in DCS, and we have a yearly event where we all get together because basically we have a couple of Belgian guys, but furthermore, there's only Dutch guys in our squadron. So we have a yearly event where we all get together here in the Netherlands, and we have what we call a LAN weekend, a local area network weekend. So we get together and we drink beers, buy pizza or bake pizzas, and we fly missions. There's so few BMS pilots right now that we've agreed that everybody will fly DCS at least on the LAN. And it would be cool if there was more people flying both, but right now it's just we have a a dedicated BMS section, and then we have a dedicated DCS section. And within the DCS section, we also have now dedicated sections for F-16. We have a dedicated Apache section, and we're also looking into creating a dedicated F-18 section.
That LAN party you mentioned kind of makes me think of that LAN party that is organized by the Micro from the BMS team, and other guys are involved in that in Buchenau, the Buchenau event. That kind of reminds me of that. Made me think of that.
Yeah, I think it's similar. And there's a lot of guys. 31st is now 20 years old, and there's a lot of guys who've been there from the get-go, and so they are all very good friends, and they also visit each other at home. So it's really cool to see everybody over there, and everybody just brings their sleeping bag and their PC, and they set it all up there, and we have a good time, a good weekend.
So in those missions, uh, did what was your path to get as a flight lead? Because I remember my first couple times as a flight lead, like it is a different story. You everything you learn goes out the window. Everybody expects things from you differently than a wingman. So how did that kind of is there training for FLUG at the 31st, or did you just kind of get thrown into a flight lead position?
There's not a training as such. We have a number of check rides where we check how we have a standard operating procedure, which is a document that is updated regularly. So we have check rides to see whether everybody knows and adheres to the standard operating procedures. And then basically what you do is it's like in a real squadron. You start as a wingman, so you start flying as a number two in a four ship, and then you slide to number four, and then you slide to number three, where you're an element lead. So you get a little bit of responsibility, and then from there on, you make your first flight as a flight lead. And like you said, most of the time it's leading a two ship, and you get paired up with somebody who's been a flight lead forever. And we have two guys who basically showed me the ropes. It was Snowman and Vordy. Shout out to them both. They gave me incredibly good feedback when I was doing my first flight lead missions, and that's yeah, that's how you learn. You learn from the guys who've done it before.
So what do you think is the most hardest thing becoming a flight lead and growing as a flight lead?
I think the hardest thing is, and I think I said it in one of my videos as well. The hardest thing is to imagine what the people in your flight are seeing and doing. You need to be able to like step into their cockpit and imagine why are they responding in a certain way, and how can I guide them based on that assumption. And of course it's all in communication. They need to tell you what they do, but as an experienced flight lead, you need to be able to identify with what they see, do, and how they should react or how they could react. You basically need to be ahead, not only ahead of your own jet, but you need to be ahead of their jet and their responses. So I think that is the hardest thing, is to have the mental capacity where flying your jet is becoming automatic, and you fly the flight instead of your, only your own jet.
Some people can say that worrying about other people in your flight could be more task saturating than because there's definitely two different types of wingman. There's a wingman where you have to babysit all the time, and they don't know what they're doing, and that's more of like a training mission. And then there's the different type of wingman who knows a little bit. They've been flying for a while, and they kind of have expectations of what the flight lead wants them to do. So they're more team oriented. They're not a lone wolf doing whatever they have to do. They communicate. They do all those type of things, and those are the people you want in actual missions. But in the training, it's training. So you expect for them to have a certain level of unknown for them not to know stuff. But in a mission, it would be more. It's less of a task saturation for the flight lead to be able to have to worry about everyone, and that definitely greatly increases the effectivity of the flight if everybody's on the same page and there's a standard operating procedure of things. So communication might not necessarily be needed because there's already a standard in the without like in the briefing or whatever. So that's two different things of when it comes to your wingman and how you actually lead the flight and what your wingman expects from you. Because there's definitely some times where the flight lead is just oversaturated because you're babysitting three other flight members, and that's impossible for a flight lead.
Yeah, I think it's true, but it's also know who's on your wing, because if you're an experienced flight lead and you have a nugget on your wing, and you give him a lot of tasks to do instead of just stay on my wing, you're setting yourself up for failure because you're giving him a task that you know in advance he will not be able to fulfill. So I think also knowing what you can delegate to the guys in your flight, based on their experience and based on how they're feeling that day. If they, it could be a very experienced guy, but if he says, "Well, I've just had a hell of a week and just give me something simple to do," then that I think is the task for you as a flight lead to stick to that.
Yeah, it is definitely a good idea to know the the performance of your flight members because they could unless they just don't say anything. If they don't say anything and then you just don't know and you ask them to do something and they said sure and then it might have been too difficult for them and that's kind of like not really anybody's fault, but it could have been stopped in another in another way by either communication on the flight lead side saying are you sure or something, or just knowing that never done that before, or the wingman saying that I've never done this before, I didn't train for it, I've never shot off Mavericks or whatever. And we all know Mavericks are pretty difficult to shoot, especially if you're not familiar with them. So yeah, definitely to know the skill level of your wingman is important as well.
Yeah, true. And if you're given a task during a mission, for instance, if you're flying in a large, we fly missions like the 72nd Virtual Fighter Wing Open Flight Nights. If you get handed a difficult task as a flight, and you know you have an inexperienced guy on your wing, basically you have to ask for something easier because you know that you're flying. Actually, you're flying as a singleton with a guy on your side instead of an actual two ship.
And did you start when with a like a element lead like as a three, or like what was your training like? Was it just a was it that you
You
wanted
mean
to
when
be
I
flight lead, or they kind of put you in flight lead, or how did that go?
Well, no, within the squadron, especially when there was so many people around still, there was a lot of guys who didn't want to be flight lead because they thought it was either too stressful or and they said we're here for the fun, and so there was the ability to just stay as an element lead or a wingman, and it was perfectly fine. And when you see the number of guys who fly BMS drop, you get to the point where at a certain point everybody needs to take lead because if I'm lead always lead, I want to have a relaxed day as well. So sometimes I just want to be element lead or maybe even just a wingman.
Yeah,
So but in
there's always a nose goes when it comes to flight lead. Sometimes like the whole flight gets filled except for the flight lead. It's like oh goodness.
Yeah, true. It's but I never hated being a flight lead. I always thought it was fun, and it goes a little bit with my personality. Yes, I want to be in the lead, but also I want to be I want and this is also goes back to how the series, the Flight Lead Fundamentals series, got going. um, I wanna understand why things go the way they go, why people do certain things in the air, in the cockpit, the way they do. And I think you only can get to that level if you actually take the lead, and not only and during the brief, the flight and the debrief, get an understanding for how and why things go the way they go. And that is not something you get from the, like I always call them, the push button tutorial. So if you want to fire an AMRAM, you do this, you press that, and then you loft it, and then that's very technical. This is more psychological, and I think that is extremely interesting.
It is extremely interesting. Like I said before, when it comes to the experiences, so you can be thrown in the flight lead, you can know your weapons and aircraft and tactics inside and out. But when it comes to doing it with other people and telling other people to do things based on their position, based on their experience, based on their tactical position, you get that, you only get that knowledge from the experience from other people, and being able to come up with a plan of four people to take out a SA2 with floggers around and other aircraft around and other friendly members around. So it only takes experience to be able to come up with a plan to be able to do seed, deed, or escort, and all those things. Of course, you still need to know your aircraft inside and out, but there's another level of that to be able to know your aircraft inside and out and how to use that in a tactical scenario effectively with other people, humans. And you could probably be pretty good with AI and stuff, but that's another story. But when it comes to humans, you really need to know and have experience in that area to be able to effectively apply it to the tactics used with flight members as a flight lead.
Yeah, absolutely true. And the same thing goes for like a GCI. I still remember the team versus team we did in 2020, I believe it was. And we had the human GCIs. There's no substitute for humans in the cockpit, neither for wingman enemies or GC or the GCI. It's so much more alive when you have just people, and because they respond, you can hear emotions, and that kind of triggers me, and that's why I like leading.
And like you said with learning, so the debrief is debatably the most important part of the flight, because if you do something wrong and you don't learn from it or learn how that happened, then you're not going to really get better, and you're probably going to do the same thing, if not something worse, next time. So the debrief is the most important part of the flight, and the flight lead is usually in the position, it well actually is in the position to be able to critique and give feedback, and also the feedback should go upwards. So if there's a wingman that has something to say about the flight lead, like, oh, you didn't communicate this, or you said something that you wanted to do but you did something the opposite, that's also how the feedback and debrief system works to get to have the flight lead get better, because that's always what that is what BMS pilots and in general aviation, they always want to do is get better. So as the flight lead, it is your responsibility to be able to remember or write down or get a a, a memory jogger during the TAC view to be able to say, hey, number two, what was the reason for going this way instead of this way, and kind of give them a opinion of what they should have done based on what happened in the situation.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And since we have the ability to do a screen to have a screen recording run parallel with TACView, I think that adds another layer where a very valuable layer, where not only you can see the movement of the aircraft relative to one another, but you can also hear comms, and you can see, okay, this is where I gave this command, and this is what happened, and this is what should have happened. um, but the other the other side of briefing is, as a flight lead, you can make or break the briefing, because true, it's where you can point out where it goes wrong, but the way you do this, if you do not force people in the defensive, but you keep positive and negative criticism at the same level. So if you mix praise with criticism, you keep people open for improvement, and otherwise they may shut down. And I've seen that happen BMS in BMS debriefs.
Yeah, that's definitely happening. It depends on how the the person taking the feedback takes it, because sometimes people get defensive immediately, and it's like, why are you getting you broke Mar, as an example, you broke Mar, you got 10 miles away from a flanker, and it's like, why did you do that? And they get all defensive. It's like, well, it's something something. It's like, well, there's not really, you got 10 miles away. We have link 16. You got the RWR, you got your radar, you got your other wingman, like you have all these other things, and you just didn't, you just wanted to get 10 miles away and merge with a flanker when there's no reason to merge. So it just depends on how they take it as well, and what their experiences are too when it comes to going into debriefs, because that could also be a trigger for some people for some feedback.
Yeah, absolutely agree. But the other side is, for instance, if that happens, you can do two things as a flight lead. You can say, okay, why did you break MAR? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? You can also focus on somebody else where it did go well, and say, okay, this is what he did. Okay, this is where he stayed outside of the MAR of the enemy, etc. And by putting the focus on that, if somebody's open for learning, you can keep them out of the defensive. So there's always, and that is it's also the way I like to be as a person, and also as a flight lead. There's always so many ways to approach things, and finding the right way in order to keep the learning at the highest level. That is something that I find extremely challenging and extremely fun to do.
So about this, I just recalled of something that happened to me way back. We So I was running a flight. I was a flight lead, and I had this guy. We were coming off a target. My flight was either escort or seed, but I want to say like escort or tarcap. And there was this MiG-21 that was kind of like creeping up on us as we were coming out. It was Miller time, and I wanted to make sure, hey, let's get this guy off of our backs before he like goes punching full afterburner and then he becomes a problem. So it's a MiG-21, shouldn't be a big deal. And one of my guys, I asked my guys, and one of them says, "I'll go." Fine, go on. And the wingman goes with him. I think it was my number 3 was going to be engaged and supported by number 4. Number 3, instead of walking up there and just shooting an AMRAAM, decides to get in a dogfight. And goes on this dogfight, and I'm looking like we didn't have link 16 back then, but we had the other data link. So I'm seeing turning in the altitude variations, speed variations, and he had AMRAAMs, he had Sidewinder, at least one. I want to say 2, but he had at least one. And there he is, turning with this guy, MiG-21. Could have shot an AMRAAM, didn't. Had like ample opportunity to shoot a A9X, which would be short work versus the MiG-21, didn't. And I asked him, hey, like, not to be a dick, but what are you doing? Like, get this over with. He's like, I know what I'm doing. Sure, okay, man. Like, chill. Some people like take it too seriously, I think, and think that all feedback is negative feedback. I just want him to get it over with, and come to find out, what he was after was a gun kill, because I don't know why.
Yeah, there's different levels of risk. Like, okay, you can get a gun kill and not have to use your missiles, but you're in a dogfight, your situation awareness is low, you're probably getting lower and lower in altitude. So God forbid you get hit by a manpad, and now what? Cool, you had the opportunity for a gun kill, but now you got shot down. So it's like, okay, cool.
Exactly, and then we have to turn all the flight around because like we were getting spacing from him, and then like I had to tell the entire package, hey, hold up, like do an orbit real quick because we have a couple of stragglers back here, and this becomes a big can become a big problem. At one point, I considered like just telling him like straight up, you knock it off and like shoot a missile or disengage, and I'll deal with him from here. But fortunately, I think at that point he was like really over it, and he finished it off with a missile. But it took way too long than it should have really.
And fuel
So yeah,
now. He
that's
has
it.
less fuel now, so cool.
Yeah, all
Yep.
of us have
Oh
less
yeah.
fuel now because we're just circling.
Yep.
So cool, thanks.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Situations like that, I think, as a lead, you just indeed need to say, knock it off, rejoin, and we'll deal with it in another way. Um, so the thing that I was more focused on, I think in a situation like you just described, you just need to be get into your role as flight lead and just command him to knock it off, and either go for a missile kill or knock it off, because in the end you're the flight lead. He needs to do what you tell him to. The focus that I had was more in the debrief. In the debrief, I still remember the first time I was leading a two ship. I had a guy in my squadron. I mentioned him before, Roadie on my wing. And when we got back, we landed. We completed the mission. We landed successfully, and he gave me a 45-minute debrief, point by point, on what I did wrong as flight lead. And he could have done that in the mass briefing, but he didn't. In the mass briefing, he only pointed out what went well. He let me do my thing as flight lead, of course, and then he chipped in as my wingman. And then we broke out, and he gave me a 45-minute, basically negative criticism on everything I did wrong. And I asked him, why did you do this? Why did you not do that during the mass briefing? He said, because if I would have done that, you would have shut down, and that would have been the last time you were flight lead. So I give praise in the group, and I give criticism one on one. And I think that's gold.
Yeah. That is gold because it's and then it's also timing because you have 20, 30 people in there. You don't want to go over 45 minutes of one thing. So you talk about the good things, and if something like detrimental, like literally your entire flight died, and we weren't able to do the mission, then of course you're going to go over at least the one two things what happened to give that outcome of failing the mission. But if everything goes right, like mission wise, like you're able to bomb the target or take out the airfield or whatever, but there's some small little things that could have gone better. A totally better area to do that is in private, unless it completely derails the entire mission. But yeah, I do that sometimes if especially for training. Like if I do training with someone and there's a large, like not large, but 8 people, other trainers in there, and they're training, and I tell them what they did good, and then usually do a sidebar of specific things for that person to not have in the masses because it helps out with them not having to shut down and never playing again because public embarrassment is really a thing, even though if it's just voice.
Yeah, absolutely true. And like I said in one of my videos, humble, approachable, credible. Not everybody is that humble, and we need and especially if you're online, you sometimes hardly know the guys, or it may be the first time you fly with them. You have no way of knowing how they will respond to either positive or negative criticism.
So it seems like you're very in tune based on the videos and based on the talks we've had. So what kind of made you want to make flight leader videos? Is this kind of just you wanting to give the community what you learned and kind of put it in a video? Because that's kind of what I do. It's like my own personal diary that I share with others because I don't want it to get lost in the virtual world of knowledge in BMS. So what kind of got you started making flight leader videos?
Well, basically, I wanted to make a video that not only was fun to look at because I had shared a couple of flights on my YouTube channel, and they got some views, but they were arguably too long. Never edited out the ingress, egress, etc. So for most people, they're quite boring to watch, I guess. And I wanted to do something online or on YouTube that people that were useful for people. And you guys already have, and a lot of other guys, they already have videos online, basically showing how to employ a certain system or how to work the radar or all that sort of stuff. And I didn't want to make another channel with that sort of content because, um, I'm not under the impression that I can do it any better than you already did. So I wanted to do something new, and this was a topic that was seldom discussed. So I wanted to see if I could chip in and make something that is useful for people who want to be flight lead.
It's definitely useful. It's even some things I learn about in there, or I resonate with when I listen to it, because like I said, there's a totally different mindset and philosophy of being a flight lead. You can only learn so much from reading or even watching videos. All it takes is for you to be flight lead of a flight one time, even if it's just literally flying around. Like you could take off, have the trainee flight lead be flight lead, have them take care of the radios taking off. You can fly somewhere, hit the tanker, do some touch and goes at another airfield, or go to the training range and drop some bombs. Something super easy, no threats. Just have them lead the flight, get the fundamentals somewhat down, and the biggest thing that they should get out of those flights is the uncovering of stuff that they don't know about. So there's this thing where people the unknown unknown, so you don't know what you don't know. So in that flight, that introduction flight, it would spark some ideas of things that may have been unknown to you. Now that you've flown it yourself, it is now known to you in that moment. So now you could do more YouTube searches or contemplate about it later on, and it's just a uncovering type of mission that gives you more perspective on what it's like to be a flight lead.
Yep, absolutely agree. It's and of course the videos that I make are not a substitute for a flight lead upgrade program or even just the knowledge that you build by flying missions in BMS or DCS. But what I wanted to put forward is like the mindset that and the mindset and the skills that a flight lead should have in order to lead a flight. And I don't think people who have been leading flights for decades, they probably won't hear anything new. But the guys who want to become flight leads and they see my videos, I hope they get triggered on like the first flight lead video that I made is when am I ready to be a flight lead? If they recognize certain things in that video where they can say, okay, this is on that subject, I'm at that level already, but I'm like flying my own jet is like automated already, but I'm not able to mentally step in the jet of my wingman. Then you know that is something that you need to work on. So I hope it'll help.
Your latest videos, I haven't watched the latest ones, but it seems like are you going into like a scenario type of examples? Because it's always good to give a specific example of a whatever flight, and as a flight lead, kind of go through what you're thinking during the flight, either during the flight in the cockpit or during the flight in TAC view. It's always good to just go through the motions of a flight lead. Say, hey, I just took off. I'm, for example, waiting for my wingman to say that they're airborne. I take off. I'm waiting for my wingman to say that they're in position, or I'm waiting for my wingman to say cold or Fox 3, or like certain things. It's kind of going through the mindset of a flight lead during the actual event will help others kind of trigger what they need to talk, what they need to think about during events. Are you doing that in some of your videos?
Well, actually, you need to think. I need to thank you now because that is something that I might do. For now, I didn't have that planned. I'm working on the next video. That's Flight Lead Fundamentals 7. Will be about briefing, and naturally, Flight Lead Fundamentals 8 will be about debriefing. And I was still wondering about what Flight Lead Fundamentals 9 would be. And this might be something that I could pick up, like just fly a mission and then record it and then pause it and then take people through why I do a certain thing or why I say a certain thing from the mindset of a flight lead. I think it's a very good idea because I didn't have anything planned for episode 9 yet. And actually, like I discussed with Fiskus before, um, episode 10 would be a bringing it all together. And I think I will tag this podcast as my episode number 10 because I think right now what we're doing is bringing it all together.
Nice, yeah, yeah. Because I've done a couple videos where I have it's a normal flight and I do the flight, and usually I have to do it like the day of or the day after because a week later I don't remember anything. As it's not as fluid as if I go to the video the day after. So I record the whole video. It's like an hour and a half long, and then I choose areas where I want to do. I don't want to do an hour and a half of commentary. So I just do like 12 minutes of the engagement or something, and I pause it. I basically run the video back. I don't do the commentary during the video during the mission because that's just crazy. So I play it back and I pause it here, and I'm like, you can see what I'm looking at in the game. So I'm like looking at my HSD or my radar, and I say, or I commentate what I'm thinking. So I'm like, I'm looking at my radar. I'm looking at so we're like an escort mission or something. And I'm looking at my radar. I'm looking at what the spacing is of the flight of the enemy, looking at how many there are, trying to think of what type they are, going through the bar that we set up in the briefing, how far we need to be away from them, what are the position of my wingman, what formation are we in, what formation do we need to be in, how far, like there's a couple things, a checklist you go through in your head, and that's always a good thing to kind of verbalize in a video where people can just watch and then get like the steps to do to be able to get into a air-to-air regime or air-to-air engagement in that sense. And you can do it with air-to-ground. You can do it with easier things, landing, taking off. Something happens, like your flight member number 3 goes out. What are the steps you need to do to do that? And it's just so many endless possibilities. But yeah, it's definitely would be a good next step for your channel with mindset, communication, and commentary videos.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's also something that I was thinking about. What will be next? Because I've set the flight lead fundamentals as a 10 part series, so I'm already thinking about okay, now what? And there's one thing that I have already set up is I want to have a number of interviews with Dutch ex F-16 pilots, and of course, with the flight sim world in the back of our heads, we talk the talk. We both talk the talk. Of course, they do because they've done the real thing. But I noticed that talking to these guys, they are very interested in what we do, and they're also very willing to share their stories. So that's one of the things that I want to pick up, but I also want to do a follow up on the flight lead fundamentals series, and I'm still wondering what it'll be, whether it'll be wingman fundamentals, but something else that could come up is like how do you take stuff that you've learned in real life into the sim pit, or the other way around? How can what you learn flying simulators make you a better professional or a better person?
Yeah, it's definitely able to be used in real life because it's leading. Is this leading? It just depends on what experiences and what hardware and situations you have, but it's also used in just normal everyday life. Knowing your people, knowing what their capabilities are, knowing what your capabilities are, and just being situation aware of the situation at hand, whether you're in an airplane or just walking down the street. So it's just all these different things that can be used in real life that you can learn from BMS.
Yeah, totally agree. And that is, I think, if I go way back, when I was 16, I was flying gliders. I got into a situation where I saw that my landing wouldn't be right. I saw that I was about to crash. Luckily, I didn't, but I froze, and that moment stayed with me forever because I've always I started to analyze why that happened, um, and the emotional response that you have in a jet and the emotional response that you sometimes can have in real life in stressful situations or in traffic or whatever. I think there's more crossover from one world to the other than some people think.
Yeah, it's definitely that risk. I think one of your videos is the OODA loop. So definitely go through the OODA loop. If you haven't do know what the OODA loop is, definitely watch his video. Fundamentals number 3 on Wildman's channel. But basically going through stuff that you do every single day, whether or not you know it or not. So you observe, so you see what's going on. You orient yourself in a appropriate manner. You decide what to do, and then you actually do it. So that is a quick introduction of what the OODA loop is, but that happens every single day, whether or not you know it or not. But definitely go and watch his video. I'll have it in the description below to watch it. But you do that all the time when you drive, when you're walking down the street, getting on an airplane, flying, like you do it all the time. And like you said, it definitely is able to be used in real life, whether or not you play video games or in an airplane or whatever. So learning how to be a wingman or learning how to be a flight lead can really help you out in real life because it gives you that sense of, is this really necessary when you want to make a decision, and is the risk versus reward ratio good enough to actually do it? So you kind of think a little bit more, and it gives you that different mindset when it comes to doing everyday things.
Yeah, true. And also, if you look at the OODA loop, there's a lot of people who do only the two O's and then don't decide, or they do decide but they don't act. So completing the OODA loop is something that if you don't do that, it just doesn't make sense. But there's a lot of people who, in a stressful situation, for instance, they do OOD or OOD, and they don't act. So yeah, maybe that's something that I might go into in future videos. Just focus more on the specifics of the OODA loop, or I don't know yet, but it's there's a lot of stuff that I can still cover, but I most likely will stay in the realm of the crossover or the mix of flying combat sims and yeah, I think it's psychology.
Let's move on. Let's get a little bit about the 31st. So how did that group get started? Kind of go into detail of how it kind of got started.
Yeah, sure. Of course, I wasn't around when it got started. There, it's 31st is exists for 20 years now. They came forth out of a group called Campground, and there's a couple of guys who came out of Campground and started 31st Virtual Fighter Squadron. Some of the guys who founded 31st are still in the squadron. Some have left, but I think most of the guys who founded it are still there. And about 5 years ago, they've always been flying Falcon BMS. About 5 years ago, there was some of the guys who flew BMS moved over to DCS, and it shifted more towards DCS now. So I think the majority there's about 50 guys in 31st. I think right now there's 40 guys who are really active and 10 guys who are basically on the sideline. And like I said, most of the guys are now flying DCS, and there's about 7 or 8 who still fly BMS. So it's structured. We have one guy who's the de facto leader of 31st. It's Night Eyes, my friend. And then we have they're not official sections, but let's call them sections for now. So we have a BMS section that's run by me, and then we have an F-16 section that's run by 2 guys. We have one guy running he's called Sonic. He's running the Apache section, and Night Eyes, the guy who leads the squadron, is now working on setting up a dedicated F-18 section. And we're all Dutch guys, or at least we're all speaking Dutch. We have a couple of guys from Belgium, from Flanders, who also speak Dutch, and that has always been a prerequisite for joining 31st, is being able to speak Dutch, because it's a lot easier for us guys, or for most of the guys in our squadron, to be able to speak Dutch on the flight nights, because of course it's also like a social gathering. Of course, it's on Discord, we don't see each other, but being able to speak Dutch amongst each other is always nice. And you also see during some of the at least during some of the training flights, we sometimes just have also the communications in the jet in Dutch. It's just a lot easier. So being able to speak Dutch is a prerequisite to join 31st.
When you're flying, do you speak Dutch, or is it English, or do you just kind of just go back to, because since everybody speaks Dutch, it is easier to do that during the flight?
I try to speak only English during the flights, and also of course use NATO brevity. But Dutch sometimes just sneaks in. Sometimes it's just a lot easier. One of the videos on my channel, I did a formation landing with one of the guys in my team, and I just said in Dutch, "Okay, you just fly the landing, and I'll stay on your wing." And yeah, it's just a lot easier. It's more relaxed. And but if we fly with the open flight nights in with 72nd, for instance, as long as we communicate with the other guys, so within the flight, we sometimes still every now and then talk Dutch amongst each other, but otherwise we of course communicate in English only.
Makes sense. And I know some stressful situations sometimes. I assume it's your first language. It just comes out because it's just easier because you're stressed already and you don't want to use that part of your brain because it's being used for other things.
Yeah, and it differs for some guys. English is like a second language. For me, I don't have to struggle to speak English, but I know there's a lot of guys who'd rather speak Dutch, and especially outside of the flight during the brief, the debrief, and when just chatting about our day. Of course, it's always nice to be able to do that in Dutch and not have to switch to English.
And just for me, just being curious, so you said to use brevity. So apparently, or is that just the Is there a Dutch brevity thing somewhere that people don't know about, or do you just use the English? So you have like a Dutch English type of speak sometimes.
No. It's definitely only NATO brevity. So it's the ATP. What is it? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
some
know
yeah
off the top
number
of my
yeah
head.
yeah.
But we use NATO brevity, and of course, if we do intra package communication, it's always in English. But yeah, if we talk amongst each other, we it's sometimes it's a mix. We'll say in Dutch that we were merged, but the only English word in that sentence will be merged.
Oh yeah. So is the only plane you fly is a 16, or do you ever dibble and dabble with the Eagle?
I've tried the Eagle, and I it's okay, but I miss a couple of things, and I especially miss the ergonomics of the F-16. I'm just so used to the F-16. I I can't get used to flying the F-15. So it's not one of my favorite aircraft.
When did you fly it just because you were just interested, or did you fly it in a multiplayer with the flight, or was it just single player type of thing with the Eagle?
I flew it a couple of times single player just to get the hang of it, and then I flew it during one of our squadron flight nights on the wing of one of the guys who really was into flying the F-15, and yeah, I just can't get used to it. So if we would have an F-16 with a radar with the capability of the F-15, that would be cool. Um, but no, it's not one of my favorites. Although being able to fly up in the 50s and just have still have power left, that is something really cool. So it's a nice aircraft, and it's cool that it's in there, and I can understand that some people love it. And but I really love the Viper too much to switch over to the F-15.
Yeah, it's definitely a different beast, but it does very well air to air. Like that is a great asset to have when you're F-16s with your missiles and you're borderline overweight and you're trying to get a flanker twice the size of you. It's very nice to have Eagles who can just take care of it. You could just kind of chill, be the second wave of it, but Eagles can get that first shot definitely because the Vipers they don't have as much legs or speed or missile capability or missile carry capabilities that the Eagles have. So it is nice to have them up there, and it's fun to fly, especially if you like air to air. But if you don't like air to air, then the Eagle's not really for you.
Yeah, it's not that I don't like air to air. It's more that for some reason, being able to the muscle memory that I have in the Viper, being able to really quickly switch between my HSD and my TGP. I really miss the TGP in the Eagle. So having that at hand while flying is something that I just don't want to miss. So yeah, but I love air to air in the Viper. Absolutely. If there is an air to air slot, count me in. I'll be there.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah. I remember my first time flight leading in a Eagle, and it was like I had flight leading down for the most part, but there was some nuances when it comes to the Eagle. The Eagle, all the avionics are different, so that's number one, with 69 different underlying variables of why they're different and what brain power had to do. And number two, the the tactics are different, so you go faster, you're higher, the speeds are quicker, so the amount of time you have to make decisions is less. So all those things come to effect, and that first couple times as flight leading was definitely difficult because of all of those reasons. So that's another thing on as a flight lead, your experiences help you make decisions as a flight lead, and if you have no experiences, as for that example in the F-15, the Eagle, then you can't really flight lead as well. You could bring all the experiences from your previous platform, which is the F-16, but they may not be correct and accurate for the F-15. So experiences is the number one when it comes to being a flight lead, being able to delegate and use tactics to your advantage.
Yeah, true. How did you do that when you first became flight lead in your squadron? Because somebody had to start somewhere, so you're basically just learning as you went.
So I first started on the 16, like way back then. I would fly as a flight lead because when I went in the F-15, I had already been a flight lead for like 8 years, so it's not like it was flight lead was new. But starting up as a flight lead with the F-16, I think I didn't have too much time as a wingman, but I think I mostly just threw myself into a flight lead position, and I have a video on YouTube where I just completely messed. Everyone died, so we went into this air-to-air regime and F-16, and this everyone just died. I literally had a brain fart every second of it, and it was just I just couldn't make a decision. Everybody was doing their own thing. It was this, I guess, like you said, with the briefing, made or break the 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 actual flight because my briefing was not up to par at all. I kind of just gave the green light to everybody to do their own thing, which is definitely not something advisable in a flight. You need to definitely have your structure in the flight. So 1 and 2 does something and they're working together. 3 and 4 does something and they're working together. And you can't have everyone do their own thing because now you're still responsible for all of them doing their own thing, and you can't even regulate what they're doing. So for me, learning was more of a getting throwing myself in to the flight lead role in smaller scenarios, and then as I got more experience by basically making mistakes over and over again, I was able to attend the debrief, record the video, watch the video, see what I did wrong, get better, and now I'm usually a flight lead like 99% of the time when it comes to that. I'm still learning as we go, and then moving on to the Eagle. I had to reset my experience with Eagles, so now I'm still going through the Eagle process of learning the most I can with the Eagle because it's definitely a different dynamic, more more rules when it comes to MAR distances. Make sure you loft when you launch a missile, the speeds, and yeah, just different things like that. But it was definitely a a a journey that I had with learning all of these different airplanes and leading people in those aircraft.
Yeah, because the reason why I asked is that I think the Eagle is so different that you can be a very experienced flight lead in the F-16. Switching to the Eagle, you need to start as a wingman again. And if you if when the Eagle just popped up in Falcon BMS, nobody had any experience. So how can somebody be better than the other one?
Yeah,
You all need
start
to
the
start
same.
somewhere.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I basically started in the flight lead position, so I just learned from there, but never really. I think my first couple of flights was as a flight lead, and then some more experienced people with F-15s because I flew it more, either had real life experience. They started getting on the Falcon BMS and started flying, and I flew as a wingman with them, and that was really great to see and experience what a flight lead, a top tier flight lead could be like, and apply those experiences to my application of being a flight lead as number one. So that was something good to see as a wingman, as the Eagle community got developed.
Yeah. Cool.
So you said that your F-16, the Viper, is a favorite your favorite aircraft to fly. So you like air to air for the most part, or would you? So of course, if you have a choice between air to air and air to ground, you would choose air to air. But have you ever done any seed and D type of stuff, which is mostly specific to the Viper?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I think if you have a tier list, it for me it would be air to air first, then seed or deed, and then just basic air to ground stuff. Where you touched on that already. What I hate the most is the Maverick. I just think that's an ergonomic nightmare.
Yeah, it is a nightmare, and it depends on the threats now. Threats aren't usually available to use the Maverick, so it's like unless it's a threat that doesn't hit you, which is technically not a threat anymore. So it's mostly for buildings, and sometimes you can use it for SA-15s if you're above the ceiling of the SA-15, but for the most part, they're not really used as much unless you specifically want to use it.
Did you ever
Yeah,
try
true.
the laser Maverick though?
No, I haven't.
Try it. Give it a go. Try it.
The last time that I heard about it was that it wasn't working.
It works if you define that thing as if you can define that thing as working, but it's basically awful.
Yeah, it's even more
Yeah, it's a big
ergonomically
mess.
awkward.
Oh yeah. Like to set it up in the jet. If you don't set it up on the ground, good luck.
Oh yeah,
If you set it up on the grounds, it's kind of okay, cool. It kind of does its thing. But if you have to like set it up in the air, especially changing out the laser codes or something like that, you enjoy that. You enjoy that.
Nah, that I probably won't. Now, the thing when we're talking seed or deed, the thing that I really love the most is just put cluster munitions on my Viper, and then fight it out with an SA2. Just get inside his minimum range, then bomb the hell out of it.
Yeah, it's always exciting. Knife fight in a phone booth with the SA2.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love it. I love to see when you finally find how you need to avoid those missiles, and then just creep further and further into the threat ring, and then at a certain point you just notice, oh wait a minute, he's not firing anymore, and then you're in his minimum range, and then it's game over for
Yep,
him.
game over. Unless it has man pads, which would suck.
Yeah, really, and of course with the new upgrades or the new updates, the Shilkas are
Oh,
real killers.
oh yeah.
I think they overdid it a little bit with those.
Yeah, they could be. I mean, they have one job, so I mean, they do that one job pretty well. So just don't get too close.
Yeah, true.
So with everyone moving to DCS in the 31st, um, if you could ask the BMS devs to create a full fidelity aircraft, which one would it be?
Um, well, it's definitely not the one that I enjoy flying in DCS the most, because that's the F5, which I like. I like the stick and rudder thing in the F5 in DCS, but it's furthermore only apart from being a good dogfighter, it's a pretty useless thing with no INS, etc. If I could have a choice in BMS, it would be either a full fidelity F-15A, so just go back to the 80s, or a more modern F-16, maybe even with the AESA radar, etc., and central pedestal display. That would be really, really cool, I think. But furthermore, for me, BMS is an F-16, is mainly an F-16 simulator, and there's I don't. For me, there's nothing else that I would like to see in there, and I'm happy for the F-15 lovers that it's in there. But for me, it's a single seat, single engine.
Yep, yep, yeah. I would like to get slightly more modern, but if they do modern on the F-16 side, they need to modernize the other side too. So Red needs to have they have them now, the R77-1s, which is the upgraded adder, which because the adders now are just atrocious, you could literally they just don't hit anything. So if we get upgraded systems, their systems need to be upgraded to be able to increase that BVR distance between the two. You can't just have a one-sided capabilities in BMS. That makes it for some people that makes it boring because you're not hitting anyone, and for other people it makes it fun because you're winning all the time. But for the most part, we want to have a challenge, and we don't always need to be winning all the time. This depends on what you want out of the sim.
Yeah, it's
They
true.
have the SA20 now as
They do have
well,
the
so
SA20, which is
Yep,
crazy.
that's a real problem. That one.
that thing is a real problem. True, and I can tell you a nice anecdote. I once built a mission. It was in the Hallis, I think, in the Hallis in the Hellenic theater, and I built a mission where we were flying F-16s and we were flying against Eurofighters with meteors.
Oh
That was a
boy.
short mission.
Oh yeah.
That was a really short mission.
Their their MAR or their like turnaround zone where you can't escape, no escape zone of the meteors is like 40 miles. Like it's something crazy.
Yeah, yeah, we were all shot down. It was
What was the
it's true if you and the other way around when the Nordic theater was still around in 437, you had the AIM 120D, which I think it goes back to what you said before, Prime. It had a range of what 100 miles or something like that.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
just took away all the fun.
Yep. So you shoot at 100 miles, and the other person doesn't expect to be shooting shot at 100 miles, so they don't do anything, and then at 50 miles away you get explode. So
Yeah.
curious though? What was the plan against those Eurofighters? Was it like to hopefully they'll run out of ammo and then we can run them down, and hopefully we're still alive by the time they do that? Like, what was the game plan
I
there?
really I built the mission for a flight night. I actually built it twice. Once against the Eurofighters, and once against I think it was also F-16s or something that we were fighting. And it was for me it was like um, to show that against Eurofighters, and especially Eurofighters with meteors, the Viper is just completely outclassed. So it was like a fun exercise. We're flying a cool jet, but we're not flying a cool jet when it's against Eurofighters.
Yeah, it's kind of like because they do a mission similar like that where it's like a lose-lose situation in Top Gun in Fallon. So they when they graduate, they send F-22s from wherever to go up there and go against them, and they all lose. So it's to initiate the like you may be a Top Gun graduate, but you are not invincible. So just the immediately humble all of them and say here's an F-22, good luck, and they all get completely massacred. That is a real thing.
Yeah, true.
Yep.
I think the other way around as well. If you I saw a video I think last week where somebody said we were flying an F-16 against an F-35, and when we got into the merge, the F-35 wasn't that impressive, but you need to get to the merge first. But I think for the F-35 pilot, it is also a learning experience because he also needs to know. As long as you stay out of the merge, you're okay. But as soon as you're merged, you may
Yeah,
be in trouble.
balanced. Yeah, the,
Yep.
your advantage is gone. So now you're within visual range, and it's all about how fast someone can turn or what their missile capabilities are. But yeah, the dogfighting is not the F-35's strong suit.
No, true.
So with this new update of Falcon BMS, I know we always talk about clouds. Are you excited about the new update with Falcon BMS about clouds and what else they have? More F-15 capabilities and different things like that?
Yeah, well, it depends for the F-15. I don't know. I think once they bring a targeting pod to the F-15, I might give it another shot. But then I think they should also update the cockpit for the F-15 and bring it to the modern standard with the third display. Um, and yeah, I'm very excited for the clouds. I'm not that much of a sucker for graphics, so I don't get excited when, for instance, a jet fuel starter door opens and closes when I start my jet. Um, but when the rotating clouds disappear and we get real volumetric clouds, I think that'll be a very big improvement because it just doesn't look right when you fly now. You look around and you see the clouds rotate.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge difference depending on what you want out of the sim. You want the correct amount of bolts, or you want the doors opening in the correct fashion, or do you want the actual simulation and the environment to actually match real life when it comes to the clouds, the how the light bends, the light, the shadows, and all that stuff. That's something that really makes a flight sim, not doors, in my opinion.
Yeah, true. And but for instance, if you and I understand that they wanna add the clouds, but there's a couple of things in Falcon BMS. If they could fix that, for instance, look at how the campaign works. Right now, if you have an enemy bar cap, they all fly at the same altitude always. I mean, they all fly around at what is it, 21,000 feet? And you can change it if you go into Mission Commander. But when you change it for everyone. And if they could, like for instance, define a bar cap altitude that is different for Sukhoi 35 and a MiG 31 and a MiG 21, because they all cap at different altitudes. It's just stupid if you have them all at the same altitude, and especially if you have enemy capping at 21 and you fly ingress at 35, you always win.
Yeah, I could see that being a big gripe because, and then if they not fix but augment and adjust the AI of the other side to be more of a human-like, where they have variable uh, formations, so they can like widen out their formation, or they can go into a grinder more of like a human, or like you said, with depending on the airplane's characteristics and capabilities, they could cap at different levels, because we're not going to see a MiG-21 capping at 30,000 feet. That's just not going to happen. And then you'll probably be seeing a MiG-25 capping at 35,000 feet, or at least ingressing at that speed, because they're supposed to just be able to ingress at Mach 2, shoot off one of their missiles, and kind of get you to go away. But it's definitely a different tactics for different airplanes, and it'll be nice for them to implement that with the different aircraft on the red side and the blue side as well.
Yeah, true. And for me, that would be a major improvement, much more than the clouds or something like that. Just make it more real, more lifelike. Also, give me as if I fly single player and I fly as a flight lead. I want to be able to have my wingman attack a certain target with one bomb, not with all his bombs.
Yeah, yeah.
I want AI not to fly to the target when they've released a long range missile. It just doesn't make sense. So if I'd rather have them spend time on that sort of stuff than on the clouds. If it's
That
just
is
my 2 cents.
that is on so many people's wish list. Like the fact that the AI, when you tell them like, "Hey, attack this target," they go, "Oh, I have 4 JDAMs here. There's a truck. Let me dump all 4."
Yeah, all of them
Yeah.
dead.
Or
Triple dead.
yeah, or
It's
make
destroyed.
sure this truck is dead, or this poor infantryman takes like 4 JDAMs to the face, or when they shoot off harm and against an SA-10 and think, let me chase that harm, see how it does.
Yeah, get shot
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, so there's a lot that is still left to improve, and I'm very aware we're not flying something that is perfect, and I'm perfectly happy with that. I don't think any project is ever done. It's the same with DCS. I think they're also working on just continuous improvement, which and I don't think they'll ever be done either. So, but right now the focus that is on looks, I understand it because the focus on looks I think stems from people flying DCS. It just arguably looks so much better. So they're losing people, and you see it within our squadron. They're losing people flying BMS to DCS because it just looks so good. So I understand that they're focusing on that, but if I had my say, they'd be focusing on something else.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of focus, but the biggest thing that you see is the clouds. But they're definitely focusing on AI characteristics, the SAM models, the systematic performances and changes of F-16s, F-15s, making sure that all this stuff works. And I think the TGP was a little broken in this current version right now, 4.38. The TGP doesn't lock on to something area-wise, so they're fixing that. So it's like they're definitely fixing other things, but the biggest thing you see, and arguably the majority of people care about, is the clouds and what you see in a sim, because that's like a surface level type of thing you see first.
Yeah, true. And I understand why they do it, and I just hope it won't be a system resource hog.
Yeah.
Because there's not everybody is able to spend thousands of dollars or euros on a top tier system.
Yeah.
So I just hope it remains playable for everyone.
It's definitely different when it comes to performance, because the even with 3.8 with the terrain, I was like, oh my goodness, this is different. Much less.
True.
But yeah, I do appreciate your time to come to the podcast, talk about your channel, talk about Flight Lead, talk about Falcon BMS, DCS, all that type of stuff. I do appreciate you coming on the channel, taking your time. Any last words from you, Wildman, to the viewers?
No, right now I'm happy people have found me. I'm glad for the people who followed me, and I hope I can make videos that people find interesting, and I hope the three of us stay in touch, if you ever want me back sometime, then I'll be happy to join you guys again.
Will do. Thanks. Anything else, Fisgas?
No, just wanted to thank everyone for listening. Thank Wildman for coming along. Definitely for the people listening, go give his, if you haven't already, go give his channel a watch. If you are thinking about becoming a flight lead in whatever group you are flying, because it's different being a flight lead in like multiplayer groups from leading AI aircraft in single player. So if you are considering doing that, definitely go check out his content. There is a lot of very helpful information on there. And see you all in the next episode.
Yep, I'll see you, and thanks for joining. And I'll see you all next time.
See ya.